Hello, it's Alexa, and you are listening or watching the Wishbeads podcast. I have an awesome guest today. It is Amy Liu. She is the founder, creator, and CEO of Tower 28 Beauty. She's an incredible woman. We met when our children were in elementary school together, and she's got a great story to share about how she began Tower 28 Beauty, which, if you are not familiar with them, they are a phenomenal a safe beauty product line that is inspired by life at the beach here in Santa Monica at the signature Tower 28 lifeguard tower right in Santa Monica Beach. She's a dear friend, and I am so impressed and proud of her. Everything that she launches just turns to gold with this company. And but it's not always easy. And I remember when she was wondering what her next chapter was going to look like. And she came to a wish circle many, many, many moons ago. And of course, she took her expertise and put her vision into action. And now she is a very celebrated founder and visionary of Tower 28 Beauty. So I hope that this story today inspires you to, think about your own wishes, dreams, and goals, and think about how, it does take that leap of faith to step into whatever big vision that you have, whatever small vision that you have, whatever those ideal thoughts and feelings that you just want to live in and day out. Amy's just a shining example of how you can truly take that next brave leap into your brilliant future. So without further ado, Amy Liu. It is an absolute pleasure, Amy, to introduce you to my audience and to get a chance to connect with you. And I miss not being in school together, where I get to jump in and, pop in and see you kind of at drop off and pick up.
So old now, it's like different, but yes.
We went through a little bit of a time warp, but here we are on the other side of a pandemic and graduating kids from elementary school and the birth of your absolutely brilliant and beautiful company. So can you share a little snapshot about Tower 28 Beauty, and then we'll get into the inspiration for the creation of this company, but just for people that are new to the brand, although I don't know who isn't new to this brand.
Oh my gosh, that's so kind of you to say. So yes, Tower 28 is a beauty brand. So we have makeup and skincare. We're sold at Sephora across the US and Canada. So over 600 stores. Revolve, Credo, and Cult Beauty. And basically we make products that are designed for sensitive skin and made for all. We're the only beauty brand that is 100% adherent or compliant to the National Eczema Association. And we also have this kind of like beachy vibe to us because, as you know, I am from LA. I've lived on the West Side for a really long time now. And the true story there was that the name actually was because I couldn't come up with a name. And then a friend of mine sent me a text one day that was like, hey, it's actually another mom. And she said, we're going to the beach. Meet me at Tower 28. And as you know, living in Santa Monica, Tower 26 and 28 are the two that have like the little boardwalks, the walkways that go out there. And it's how people find each other at the beach. So to me, it was this idea that it symbolizes community. It symbolizes the beach, which is a place where everybody gets to enjoy a healthy lifestyle. And I think that's one of the things I'm really trying to do with Tower 28 is to create products that are not only safe for sensitive skin and clean, which we are, but also an accessible price point. And so if you go to Sephora, one of the things you'll notice is that our products are like our lip gloss is $15, where the average, certainly in clean, is upwards of 20 and maybe even closer to 25, I would say. And that's kind of another thing that I love about the beach is that like you see not only every kind of person, but like really diverse people, right? And that particular intersection that I know you know so well at Tower 28 is really like where Venice and Santa Monica come together. So you see like every kind of person there. And so to me, it was just really symbolic and beautiful of those things.
And it does. I mean, at every point in your company's messaging and the products themselves and the packaging, it is so emblematic of that spirit. And I, of course, also love the beach. And I think there's something about when you touch one of your products, and I have them literally everywhere. Like I have the new
Oh,
mascara, I have my serums and my
thank
spritzes and my lip
you.
gloss and all that stuff. But you get to taste a little bit of that lifestyle, and you get to feel a little bit of that fun and that freedom and that ease. And I
Oh,
think that that's why we put, objects in our world. It's not just like it's the way they make us feel, and not just the application of
yeah.
them and how they make you look, but actually interacting with them. Like even the texture of your packaging. There's just
Oh,
something to
I
it that I
love that
just think is so
you.
thoughtful.
Oh, thank you. I love that you say that. I think so I've worked in the beauty industry for a long time. And I think one thing when things get really stressful, I've heard a lot of people say, guys, we're not curing cancer. And like, let's not, freak out. And I think that's absolutely true. But at the same time, I actually do think I'm like, we don't have to give people cancer. Like that's a different part of it.
So you're doing something
Um,
about that.
yeah. So we try to make sure we put really good ingredients inside. But then at the same time, I also think like what you're saying, I think beauty products and people in general who put beautiful things into the world, like what you do, I think that they are a medium or a vehicle for like people to feel better about themselves, to vote with their dollars. And I think what we're doing, certainly when it pertains to beauty, I think it really helps people feel more confident and better about themselves,
Yeah.
which I genuinely believe changes the way that they walk through the world, their ability to have more confidence, and for them to bringing it back to what you do to really like, I think, go for their dreams and their wishes and make them come true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, there's no doubt that I have felt the nature of a kindred spirit when, we've connected. And I thought today what I really wanted to talk about, I mean, there's a lot of things I want to talk about, but here we are, we're both moms, we're both entrepreneurs. We've both experienced different chapters in our life. And I think that it's refreshing when we talk about wishing. It is about reinvention. It is about birthing new things. It is about having the confidence to change your life, to, to put yourself out there, to take action, to grow. And so I want to, catch everybody up on sort of the first chapter of your professional life, because
Yeah.
you have like an amazing story. And just to understand where you were in your life, post college and grad school and all that stuff. And to sort of, zoom us forward to the creation of Tower 28 Beauty.
Yeah, I would say that I've had almost like three lives when it comes to my professional life. And the first one would be, so out of college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I've thought about this a lot, and how I heard Elizabeth Gilbert talk about this at one point, about the idea that there are like hummingbirds and there's jackhammers in the world. And like the idea that some people come out into the world and they know exactly what they want to do in life, right? Like my best friend from college, Zoe, the moment I met her, she was like, I'm going to be a doctor. And guess what? She's a doctor. And I was always so jealous of that, because I always felt like if I knew exactly what I wanted to do, I would have a very clear path, because I'd be like, I understand how to get there, and it's much more formulaic. And I think I felt really lost, and like I didn't know what to do, because I didn't really know where I wanted to end up. I just knew I didn't, I wanted to be successful, and I wanted, all these kind of amorphous ideas, but I didn't know how it manifested. So just to go back to that, and when I graduated from college, I actually went into consulting, because in absence of knowing what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, well, then I just want to make sure I don't fuck up. So I was like, I'll just do things that I know are like a sure thing. So I went into consulting, which at the time was, I think, considered to be a very safe, but also like a very pedigreed job. And so I got a job at Accenture, which I was really lucky for. And I really enjoyed it, but I didn't know it. I didn't enjoy the work, to be honest with you. Like the functional work I was doing, I was like a computer programmer. I really didn't like it, but I liked being around really smart people. I liked the idea that I had a diversity of industries that I got exposed to, and I was learning all the time, but I didn't functionally love what I was doing. So that was part one. And I decided to go to business school out of that, because I was like, I'm going to buy myself a little more time and figure out what I want to do. And so that's why I went to business school. I went to business school at USC. And during that time, I read all these books, one of which was literally What Should I Do with My Life? If you remember that one, or
I haven't read that one. That's interesting.
it's a book by Poe Bronson. It's called What Should I Do with My Life? And then there's another one called What Color is Your Parachute, which is probably a bit more iconic. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
And it's like these workbooks that are supposed to help you. You do these worksheets, and it's like, okay, what are the things that you like enjoy doing, that you're good at, and all those types of things. And sort of one of the things I gravitated towards was women. So I identify as a woman. I've always felt very feminine. I really enjoy female companionship, and I really enjoy understanding honestly, the psyche of a woman. And I wanted to do something that I could see in my everyday life and that I could understand as a product. I think when you work in something like, so I was doing like information systems before that when I was at Accenture, and it's so like heady, like you can't see it because it's like,
it doesn't strike me as a feminine job, or,
no, but you also can't talk to someone about it. Like an everyday person I can talk to anybody about makeup and they understand what I do.
Yes.
It was like something that I just didn't feel like resonated with me I didn't feel like it helped me be part of society in a way. And so I wanted something that I could connect with a little bit more personally. And I basically came down to, I was like, it's either going to be fashion or beauty, because I wanted something female oriented. I wanted a physical good. And basically I made my decision because I understood from talking to people that beauty is a bit more cyclical and a bit more objective, as opposed to fashion, which can be a bit more subjective, meaning like it's, fashion is subject to trends and creativity and those types of things, where beauty is a little bit more like, I don't know, like 50% of people like the color pink, 10% of people like the color brown.
Yeah, broad strokes. Right.
It's like a little bit more like a math problem. And I think I'm a little bit more of a linear thinker, to be honest. And so I was like, that feels safer. That feels better. I'll choose that one. And so I got a job at L'Oreal when I was in business school. And then I went from there to Smashbox Cosmetics, to Kate Somerville, to Josie Marin. And so I would say that's like the second chapter of my career, where I was really a beauty industry executive. I started and always in marketing. And I think the backdrop to all of that was like the idea that I always wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I told myself I was going to learn on someone else's dime. I was like, I was going to get a seat at the table. I was going to learn. And one day I was going to do my own thing. And that was the story I told myself. And I think in a lot of ways it became true, but I didn't pull the trigger. And then at one point I was really unhappy in my job. And as you know, when you have small children, I think you can feel really tugged in a lot of different directions. And I honestly just felt like I was doing all these things, but I wasn't doing them well. And I came home one day, and my husband, Victor, who's the nicest man on earth. And I said to him, I was like, I'm just really unhappy. And he said, so why don't you quit? And I was like, what? I had no idea that was
I can do that.
I didn't think it was an option. And he was like, listen, like it's not like we don't have to make any concessions here, but like, we can figure out how to do this. You should quit if you're not happy. And so I did. I quit my job, and I spent 4 years, which is when you and I met, just caring for my children. And I was consulting at the time. And I think I had and you probably remember this, but it was both beautiful and wonderful, because I had this, I feel so lucky that I had that period of time to be with my kids and see, and I had a third child, and like, it was such a beautiful time. But at the same time, my identity was really, I think, confused, because I think,
it's a huge gear shift to go from such a professional trajectory and also doing what you love, like putting a lot of energy into that. It's a big shift.
And I think I had told myself this story for so long. I mean, when I was in business school, by the way, I majored in entrepreneurship. Like, I wanted to do this for a long time. So it's like the through line is there. I just had a lot of fear around like actually doing it, because I didn't. And the story I told myself, which I don't think is unfair, is I didn't have enough money to do something on my own. And I didn't have a partner, and I didn't want to do it alone. And I didn't understand how someone could do it individually, because I was, I grew up in an industry where I was part of teams. So I didn't understand how anyone does this by themselves. And frankly, I didn't know anything about raising money. I didn't think it was possible for me. I didn't know other people who had raised money. So that concept was pretty foreign. And then I think I was just afraid, right? Like
Sure. It's a big risk.
It's a big risk. And I think not just the financial one, especially having 2 kids, and we had or 3 at the time, and then we had bought a house, and so there's a lot of financial risk there. But then on top of that, I think if you're someone like me who finds a lot of identity and achievement, for better or worse, and then you worry, like a lot of people actually, when I started raising money even for this, would say to me, like, and so nicely, right? Like, oh, if anyone can do it, it's you. You're for sure going to be successful. And I know they meant it in the nicest way, but it felt so heavy.
That's a lot of pressure.
You know what I mean? Because like, it was almost like this thing that I prepared for a long time. And then I got really worried that like, I was never going to be prepared enough. And I actually feel like in retrospect, you're not ever prepared enough.
Right. And I guess the more stories you hear about everyone else, everybody is always making it up and reinventing 100%. And figuring it out. Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't look like that on the outside.
Well, and then we live in a society even more than it was before, which is like Instagram versus reality, where it's really easy to look at somebody else's life and feel like it's so much easier than yours, or like that their path was so much easier. And that you can just like, even I'm sure people look at me and they're like, oh, it happened so fast. But like, I also feel like I've been working in the same industry for such a long time. And a lot of it was like those connections I made really early on that served me later on. People believed in me because I worked with them.
And obviously you did your work in the first chapter of your life with, you did a great job, because those relationships, people underestimate the power of relationship, and you can 100%. Leverage those and go back to them. Even if you're someone who, jumped from job, or not that you jumped, but like you made relationships in various companies, and those obviously served you, and that says everything about you.
Totally. I mean, I actually, relationships is probably what I value more than anything.
Yeah.
Relationships, and I would say reputation kind of go hand in hand for me. I used to teach at FITM, which is like they have a beauty discipline here in LA. And my advice, because everyone was like, what's your advice? I'm like, just be nice and work hard. Like,
very simple.
It's actually not that hard of a concept.
Right.
And I guess just be prepared too. Right. So like when opportunity strikes, that you're ready to do it. But I really think a lot of that is almost like a mental exercise in terms of readiness. Cause I don't know that you ever are ready. You just have to have like the, I don't know, capacity to try. But I actually, and it's funny, I really actually have not talked about this a lot publicly, but I tried to start 3 other companies before doing this.
Wow.
And all 3 of them, the through line there was I picked people who I thought were really smart and capable. And I was trying to make their vision come alive. Like I was like, okay with the idea that it would be their idea and my work.
Oh yeah. But if you go back to that original story, the original story that you imagined, it really felt like, from just me hearing you say it today, was I want to have an idea and put it out into the world.
Yeah. And it's interesting now looking back on it, because of course those ideas never went, like they kind of flailed. Right. But I think it was also because I didn't believe in myself at the time. I was like, okay, I think they're great, and I'm going to work hard and make their dream come alive, as opposed to something I genuinely even like cared about or felt mission-based around for myself. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can I ask you?
And then the 3rd chapter, Tower 28.
Oh, well, which we will get to. But I hear you talking about your story, the inner story that you have. and you have this notion that sort of was always driving you, I want to create my own thing. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do, take an idea and put it out into the world. And then I also hear, the voices that maybe were giving you that hesitation, maybe weren't stopping you completely because here you are, but giving you hesitation. What were some of your practices to get really clear and remember what you want, and also manage and deal with those voices that are almost stopping you from that, or blocking you, or filling you with, anxiety? Did you have any practices around that to cultivate the balance of those two voices?
So I think it's funny that you speak about this in the past tense as if I don't still have that problem.
That is so true. Let's talk about right now, like every day.
I think that this is an ongoing concern. And I don't know that we ever totally let go of those concerns, right? But at the same time, I think you get more close to yourself and you figure out kind of what are the things that you like. Honestly, I feel like at the age of 44, I'm just starting to understand who I am and what I'm good at. And it's wild to me that it's taken me this long to have some self-awareness and to not be so afraid, frankly, or like just be okay with the fact, as opposed to, so let me back up. I mean, I think it's a combination of saying like, it's not that I don't want to get better at the things that I'm not good at, but there is some of it where I'm trying to just accept like the things that I'm not good at, and then put people around me who are better at those things.
Yeah.
But to answer your question about what are the practices, I think the practice I've tried meditating. I'm really bad at it. I don't know how to do it, honestly.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. I mean, either offline or online, because I think meditation is like taking a shower for your nervous system. And there are different ways that you can even embrace it on a teeny little micro, experience. But it's actually one of my go-to practices.
I mean, it's everybody who is a calm, collected human. It's so. And I tip my hat. At least in a literal way, I haven't been able to access that. I think I've found it in other moments, like when you're driving and you're able to kind of just zone out for a moment.
Yeah.
Like there's other, like, if I exercise, I'm like, I can have moments where I'm like a little more zoned out. And I think those are my version of it.
Yeah.
The only real practice I have around it is I wake up really early. I wake up before my kids. I wake up before my husband.
Yeah.
I have a cup of coffee. I drink my vitamin. I eat my vitamins. I take my dog on a walk, and I'm alone. And I'm just not alone otherwise, right? Like I'm with my team. I'm with my kids. I'm in the busyness of life. Even when I am alone, I'm answering the phone, email, like I'm doing these things. So my only real practice around that is trying to be alone for a little bit every day. And then also trying to be reflective and grateful for where I am. I think it's hard, frankly. I think a lot of times, even if when you, and you had success, like, I think there is something about it where you want to like celebrate the wins, but almost like the wins kind of happen very quickly before you're like, and then what? How do I make sure?
I know.
How do I make sure I don't lose this?
I mean, so many women, especially women, I don't know if men, I haven't heard the confession so much as women, this idea of it's not enough. And I think it's a little bit speaking to that, like win and then like next, win and then next. And I think that I can step back and look at, let's say, my family or my husband, or like, what are the voices around me that are actually saying, oh, Alexa, that's not enough. And I can tell you, it's none of them. There is nobody behind me, around me, above me, below me, saying it's not enough. It's something that I'm actually actively working on myself. So that balance of appreciation, curiosity, and then there's nothing wrong with having goals, but it's where is the energy behind that next goal? Is it
Yeah.
fear-based, or is it
For
is
sure.
it fun or exciting? Like that has a positive ring to it. But if it's that feeling of it's not enough, it's not good enough, I'm not enough, that
Yeah.
is like that must be released. And I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying it to me.
No, 100%. And I think it's like, and I'll just like be a little more vulnerable for you. I think one of the things I really realized doing this was, if my goal in doing this was that, say, my mom would finally think that I was like, whatever, worthy, gave me approval, all these things that I think I've been searching for. Like, if this has not done that for her. And so now I'm like, if this isn't it, like, and in some ways it's a good thing, right? Because it's like, okay, like if this isn't it, then it's just frankly not going to happen. So now deal with it and figure out how to like
Release, heal,
release that.
yeah,
Like that's just not the thing. That's not you're not going to get it. So just be good with it too.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. And I think that sometimes we put these goals in front of us, and it could be any goal, like starting a family or buying a new house or whatever. And if we really understood, and it's real tricky in the wishing business, because wishing implies in a way that there is this suspended satisfaction until your wish comes true. But actually, the magic happens in the process of saying yes to the wish and discovering how to do it and how your life changes and the people that you meet and the way that you challenge yourself and getting out of your comfort zone. And yet there is so much education or learning in that. And then reminding myself simultaneously as I'm teaching that it's not actually about the thing. So if the thing is approval from a parent, or a certain amount of money in your bank account, or fill in the blank, or your kid says, I'm proud of you, or whatever your external thing is, once you get it, and that's part of that realization, like you launch the product, you have your awesome new mascara and you launch the product, and then you're like, okay, cool, that happened. What's the next thing we're going to do?
Yeah.
And it's something about really anchoring yourself in the reality of the joy, the satisfaction, maybe the word satisfaction of the doing of it, of the saying yes to it.
100%. I mean, I don't know, Alexa, how much you follow our stories and things like that, but I actually had this moment earlier this year where we were launching our mascara, which was our biggest launch that we've ever done. And there was a lot of pressure about this because Sephora had never bought this much product from us before. And so like, if it doesn't sell through, it's a huge thing. And the team worked really hard for it. And I had this moment where I pulled back and I was like, at first I told my team, I was like, listen, here's a little context. I'd gone to Italy and I had gone for work to go visit one of our manufacturers. And I was like, guys, it was so amazing, like blah, 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 blah. And they started making all these jokes about how like, what if we all carpool to work? Can we go to Italy one day? Like, and I was like, wait, and we do these little retreats, right? So 2 times a year, we, most of our team's in LA, but we have some people remote. So we have these 2 retreats a year where we're coming together as a team to kind of pull back and say, like, what are the things that we're like planning sessions essentially. And I had this moment where I realized, so I said to my team, if we hit the goal of what the mascara is, then we will all go to Italy. And they were kind of like, not that excited, to be honest with you. They were kind of like, okay. And then when I asked one of them, they were like, well, we don't know if it's going to happen. Like, we don't feel like we have that much control over it because they've already done the work, right? Because it was like around the launch and everything. So at that point, it was like, well, hope people buy it, And so a week before we launched, I was like, forget it. Let's just go. Because
no matter what, let's go. You've earned it.
Because we did the work, and we should just celebrate the fact that we did the work as opposed to being so attached to the outcome. And I thought it was such a great way to connect and celebrate. And I thought that was actually the lesson, instead of being so I think a lot of times we tell ourselves like, I get to be happy when.
Yes.
Right? Like, if I hit this next thing, then I get to be happy and enjoy myself or proud of myself. Right. Like, and I'm trying to also with my kids, teach them to not be so outcome oriented, but rather enjoy the process, because it is all the process. And you'll always meet someone, I don't know, richer, smarter, prettier, like all these, whatever it is that you aspire.
Your perception of that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, oh, Amy, I really, really love that. And then what was the energy? What was the feeling from your team in that moment when you, first of all, had the courage to reinvent that whole idea? Like, I just love that, sometimes in a leadership position, there is also this thing like, well, I've already done it. I can't show them that I don't know. But I love this idea that you had the bravery to be like, actually, let's pivot here.
Well, I mean,
what was that like when you
team probably is not so worried about I think I'm pretty vulnerable and I'm pretty clear that there's things I don't know. And so I don't think we have as much of that disconnect, at least. I think it felt really great to be in a place where I could do something like that.
Yeah.
Both financially and like when I think about the arc of like what I want out of my life and out of this experience, very genuinely part of it is like, have you ever heard of the Simon Sinek?
Oh yeah. I know Simon Sinek. Sure.
He talks about like, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Right.
Yeah.
And like the idea that you should really get so close to like your why. And I think my why is really, if I think about the area in the world that I have the most potential or ability to actually influence, just by virtue of the fact that it is my community and it is the area that I know the most people, et cetera, I have the most credibility. It's the beauty industry. Right. And so I think if I can really make the beauty industry better, that will be it for me. And so for me, that comes out in a couple of different ways, right? From like a product perspective, I do think like if you can see a brand that is successful, having values that espouse diversity and inclusion, really providing high performance value, like not being clean, like all these things that we do, that I would argue is more of our what. I think that does something from an influence perspective. But I also think about my team. I mean, I've worked with pretty much, it's funny at the beginning of this, I was telling you, Ellie's interested in going to an all girls school, my middle school child. And I was kind of like, I can't believe you're interested in this. This is so strange. What a weird idea. And my husband looked at me and he's like, why is that weird to you? You work with only women all the time. He's like, it's literally your entire career has been working with basically only women and gay men. And I was like, oh, that's true. That's
so
true.
Interesting.
But I guess I just, so my point is more like, I think about the girls on my team, and I a lot of times all women can be, in my experience, terrible environments, with a lot of like toxicity and, politically weird and all of those types of things. And so one of the things I'm hoping that I can do is be, one, a good role model, but two, also create an environment that doesn't perpetuate that. And in fact, can grow leaders for the next generation who I can be a role model for and like, have a different way of leading.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think about it in every kind of part of it, but that's one.
I love that. I love that. Well, let's fast forward a little bit and go back in time to that place where you were really curious, where you were in the transition or feeling the yearning to that original story, that story of entrepreneurship, when you and I crossed paths. And I don't remember which wish circle you attended, but how did Wishbeads play a role in holding that curiosity and maybe giving you a little bit of clarity? Because I actually have never heard this story. So I'm curious.
I mean, so you had invited me to an event at your mom's house, and it was really early on. And it was when I think, because I only see your like non-paper beads.
Yeah, but I'm actually bringing those back. I'm launching a class tonight with the paper bead. Yeah.
Great. So you had invited me to this class and had done, led the circle and everything. And I had written down the letter. I just remember the white paper, the red ink. And it was basically about what this is. I wanted to, it was all the things I wanted. So not just because tend to think of Tower 28 or the brand or the product as almost like the medium for kind of how I'm getting to where I'm going. But really what I wanted was this experience. I wanted to know that I could do it. I wanted to know that I could. So from an ego perspective, I wanted to know I was capable of it. I wanted to have my own story for like what this next part of my life was like. I wanted to create beautiful things, all those types of things. But I also wanted to have like a positive impact and be a good role model for my kids. I wanted to have them. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but for my kids, I really wanted them to see both of us doing something.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And I think there's, even when you are at home, I think that society doesn't respect that role enough, right?
Agreed.
Like of having to rear and take care of children and all of that. So I actually feel like that was really hard when the kids were small. But those were all the things I wanted. And I remember writing all these things down in a very literal way, like all the things that I wanted to feel, all the things that I wanted to have, and in a more literal way, like I remember one of the things I manifested or wished was I just wanted to be able to make as much money as I was making before, but to do
very specific. Yeah.
But to do it on my own term, to do it with my own thing. I really wanted to choose who I worked with. Like I wanted to choose, and the retailers, the people on my team, all those types of things. And I wanted to enjoy them. And so even now, like one of the things I think a lot about is like, can I go to lunch with these people? Like, would I want to it's as much about like, it's not just about like, are you smart and are you like good at the job? It's like, are you going to,
do I like you?
Yeah. Do I like you? Will you like me? Like, can we communicate? Do we have rapport and chemistry?
Do we want to go to Italy together?
Do we want, which is a real testament to I literally said to the team, I was like, these are like the two things people don't do, like travel together and live together. Like, it's like really asking for it to all fall apart.
Yeah.
Great, actually. But yeah, I remember writing those things down and making the little beads and cutting. And I remember, and it really was not that long after doing that everything changed. And I don't know, you might know more than I do, having had this experience in a lot of different ways, but like, I don't know what exact role it was that the Wishbeads played in this process, but I will tell you, it has to be part of it, right? Like just the idea of like forcing yourself to like get pen to paper and be really clear about what you want.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the literal things. It's the way I wanted to feel, the way I wanted to, the impact I wanted to have. All of those things, I think, makes a big difference.
Yeah. I had a friend once describe it as a contract that you're making with yourself.
Yeah.
That there's something about, and I think there is, and I'm actually really curious about the science behind handwriting. We live in such a digital world, but there is something about writing your desires and voicing them, getting them out of your head. Earlier in the podcast, we talked about the practices. There is something so draining about keeping a thought whirling around in your brain 100%. In the intangible. And when you quiet and commit and create, it is something that is like the alchemy of what I would call co-creation, because it's not like we're just doing it, but we are saying, yes, this is what I desire, and allowing that collaborative element to come in. So whether it opens up the door for conversations or connections or new patterns or who knows what? But when we keep it in the recesses of our mind, it just doesn't go anywhere. It just spins.
I mean, I think it does create like a consciousness around like, this is what I want. Like just making space and being like in a quiet moment. What is the thing that you would say when asking this question?
Yeah.
And I think that's really special. And then I think there is something, I don't know, I can't remember what that quote is, but the idea that the universe will conspire to get you everything you want in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's really true too, right? Like I don't know if I told you that much about it, Alexa, but when I first I went from that to, so I was hoping, wishing, whatever, and not really doing much more to manifest this. And then basically I got an opportunity from a friend of mine who had sold his company, who decided that he wanted to invest in something else. And he offered to be my first money in. And the thing that was really interesting was not just that, because that is pretty unique in and of itself, but that after that, he told me, he's like, what you should do next is you should take these terms that I'm giving you, and you shouldn't assume that they are good. You should walk them around to people you trust and say, like, are these good? And what do you think? And that's what I did. And so many people said to me, like, because I didn't realize it even, but that I had been saying to the world for so long, this was something I wanted, that there were so many people in my life that came forward and they were like, hey, I heard you're doing this thing. I want in. And
so,
like,
such validation.
Well, and like, this is the thing that you've been saying you wanted to do for so long. And it was, I feel like when I say that, people assume that I know just really wealthy people, but honestly, it was a lot of small checks. And it was people who had worked for me. It was a girl who was my coordinator at one of my jobs previously. It was like a guy who had worked lateral to me, who was like a finance guy, people, my neighbor, who, like people who just were like, I just want to be part of what you're doing because I believe in you. And it wasn't necessarily a ton of money, but what they gave me, and sometimes it was, by the way, but what they gave me was almost because they believed in me. I had such a, and I'm so accountable to other people, right? Like I care so much about not letting other people down that it really gave me like a certain amount of momentum, I think, to be like, okay, like more than the money, it was this attachment I think I felt to like the fact that they believed in me and I wanted to really do something with it.
Yeah. And you can't underestimate the power of belief. Yeah. And sometimes we can believe in ourselves, but then the validation of other people rallying around us, which just means that you go from, and it sounds like one of the things that you value is team. I've heard you use the word team. And so you have this team, not only that you employ, but also this whole network of people conspiring for your greatness, that are holding you up in intention and support. And I'm sure well beyond just financial support, but that extends to their network or their expertise or their guidance and advice and relationships and things like that. And I think that that's also a myth, that there's like some fairy god person who's going to come down and just grant it all. It's that combination of intention and then a lot of hard work and a lot of humility and self-discovery and perseverance and all the sort of traits that take things from, the manifestation. That also has a word that implies some sort of, magic. But the magic is actually inside of us to just go and do the work, to give ourselves permission to dig in, figure it out, and make it happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I don't know if I've properly said it, but Alexa, thank you for making space for me to do that early on in this. I don't know. It's been quite a journey.
Aww.
And I've always loved what you're doing with Wishbeads. And I think if I am hopefully a case study in it, then I think there's a lot to be said for it.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Well, I will continue to be a big fan and cheerleader, and I'm just in awe of what you've created. It really is astonishing, and it's so inspiring. And I know that it's having such a positive impact, especially on young people, and making them feel confident and sharing their light and a little bit of that SoCal vibe wherever they are in the world.
I mean, that means a lot to me. I don't know if we talked about this part, but I genuinely have had eczema my entire adult life, like from the time I was 18. And so I think I really understand what it's like to have troubled skin and to feel self-conscious. And
Yeah.
so I really, when you said young people, that is the thing that I hope is, whether you're young or old, is that for better or for worse, I think we as people, not just women, but people, have so much attached to the way that we look.
Yeah.
And that dictates sometimes our ability to feel confident.
Yes.
And so I don't know. I hope that like like I said earlier, we may not be curing cancer, and hopefully we're definitely not giving anyone any, but but hopefully we're also making people feel actually good about themselves too. And I think that's something really important.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Well, thank you for saying yes to your big wish. And you can see really that, sometimes people think the wish is all about themselves. But when you say yes, you're actually creating this beautiful ripple of change and positive impact. And that can be with your immediate family, your friends, your colleagues, your customers, your clients, the public. I mean, please, 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 thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And then just to wrap up, where can people find you besides Sephora all over the place? But, tell us all of your handles and good stuff.
So our handle for socials at Tower 28 Beauty, spelled out TOWER 28 BEAUTY. My personal handle, which I don't post a lot, but you can go look anyway, is Amy AMYLIU _T28.
Nice. So good. And of course, check out wherever makeup is sold and all those brilliant locations. Pick up some fabulous Tower 28 goodies. They're absolutely incredible. Tower28beauty.com, I'm sure, is also a great place to find your favorites directly. And Amy, just thank you for being so awesome. I can't wait to see what else you have in store.
We're working on a lot of fun things.
Yay!
All right.
All right. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you have a wish story to share, do let us know. Email us at hello@wishbeads.com. Share your story. And if you want to be featured on our podcast, by all means, let me know as well. Because I think people get inspired by hearing the true stories of how Wishbeads have helped you, because it may just help someone else. So thank you so much. If you like our podcast, go ahead and leave a review, and so we can continue to make more of these. All right. Keep wishing, my friends. And if you want to stay connected, be sure to join for our next Wish Circle. We even have some events coming up, so check the website. Thanks, and I will see you next time. Bye.